Welcome back to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. And today we are back with another episode from myself, another bite-sized episode, but it's going to be around the running event that I did just yesterday in the Martock 10K. And I'm delighted to be sat here with some confidence and have done come in here, sitting here, knowing that I've done what I said I was going to do after the last time that we reviewed an event. But my plan of action today is to talk to you about Martock 10K, whether you should go and run it yourself, the new route, whether I had a good time or not, whether I have refound my confidence, and all of those lovely things within the event that I did yesterday. So let's start off with the event, shall we? So, Martock 10K, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know anything about me. Martock 10K in 2019 was the first ever running event that I ever did, right? So, it has a bit of a kind of sentimental place in my heart because it was the first time that I'd really proved to myself that I could do something that was really hard, right? Somebody that was 23 stone, how would they ever get into a position where they could run a 10K? And obviously I did that. And going there yesterday after a bit of a knock of confidence in Yeovil half marathon, where I ran my worst ever time for a half marathon, or half marathon race, obviously taking away training times and all of those kind of things. After that and going into Martock 10K, it was another kind of place to settle a couple scores with myself. I wrote a post yesterday, actually, just going on a bit of a tangent. We know we love to do that. Wrote a post yesterday that was about this one wasn't about other people. Now, what I meant by that was, it sounds a bit kind of, I don't know, not self-indulgent. I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot of talk around push-pull energy, yeah? So, like, where you're pushed towards something through, like, experiences or through external factors, and that's definitely something that I've utilised in the past. So, I would say that I like to frame it as, like, fuck you energy. So you've gone and done something to kind of, like, prove other people wrong, and I've definitely done that with my own goals and stuff in the past. But this one was definitely an internal one. It was more of a pull energy. I was being pulled towards getting myself back to being a better runner because of the fact that I didn't run too well in Yeovil. And the reasons for that were I ran ham to lime, injured last year, so 56k or 54k. I started it and I knew within the first 2 miles that I wasn't at my best, but still ran a really good ultra, but paid the price at the end and was out for about 3 months. I remember going for a couple of runs with my friend Ant and just obviously getting halfway through smaller runs like 4 miles, 5Ks, and just being like, mate, I'm not in a good way here. My hip had a hip impingement. So it really put the brakes on the progress that I'd made with my running. And I kind of neglected running really until I went away. I remember running in Thailand and finding it hard because obviously it was in like sweltering heat, and getting back in January, kind of winging my way to the half marathon and not running it very well. And it was definitely a reality check to be like, right, mate, time to get yourself back in order into a position that I knew that I had been in the past. And there was lots of really odd conversations with myself around the messaging that I was giving myself around the fact of, could I get that fit again? Could I run that fast again? Was the injury something that was going to hamper me for a long time? All of those kind of things. And even to the extent, like, I knew the work that was going to be entailed into it, just through London Marathon experience, through running sub 50 minute 10Ks before. And I knew the work that it was going to take, and like almost talking myself out of whether I could do it or not. But to sit here and say that since the Yeovil half marathon, I've ran every week without fail since. I have done at least 2 sessions. I've obviously ticked off my 310 kilometer challenge too. So that helped, having those. Obviously it was tiring, but it's just enabled me to stay focused. And the addition to me planning myself and programming myself for my runs and the quicker runs and almost treating myself as I would do a client, right, has been really, really, really useful. So, in fact, we'll flip around. I was going to talk about the event, but we'll talk about the event second. Let's carry on the tangent of me talking about the my experience of the race. And basically, cutting a long story short, the training had paid off. Yesterday, when I first started the event, I was like, I'm going to try and stick in and around the 52-minute mark. That was what I told my dad that I was aiming for. If I got back in 52 minutes yesterday, I was really happy with that. That would have been a massive improvement on where I was at. It would have shown that I could run back at that tempo pace that I could run at the past. And it meant as well that I could look forward to half marathon retribution in October, Cardiff half marathon, with an excitement of, yes, I'm back in a position now where if I kick on, I can go and do better again at Cardiff or in Cardiff. So that was the narrative before the day, but quite quickly I realised that there was a tempo run in me yesterday, even though it was hot, even though it was muggy, that hadn't been there for ages. I was just inside of the 8-minute mile mark for the opening 2 miles. So I think the first, I don't have my splits, but we can get them on the screen and we can show you. I ran those splits and I was just inside the 8-minute mark for the first mile, and I didn't feel like I was chasing myself. I felt really in control of my breathing. Have like a 3 in, 2 out. So like on my stride, I'm like 1, 2, 3 in, boom, boom, 2 for out, and I could just maintain that. And that's my tempo. That's my tempo speed, and I was probably going a little bit faster than my tempo speed, which I would expect on a race. One thing as well that was really important in that first couple miles is obviously you've got been. I was in the top 50% of runners yesterday, but I'm not in the top 25% by any stretch of imagination. But really important in those early stages to not get caught in the opening surge. And unfortunately, you do see people do that very often. They'll get caught in the opening surge and they'll get dragged out with a speed that they can't sustain for very long. And you can see that affects their run later in the race. Either you can hear it with their breathing, or either you see it because you can see them completely and utterly kaplunked by mid stage range of the race. There you go. That was a tongue twister. Say that again 10 times faster, I dare you. So basically that carried on. I was like, I'm going to just sustain this pace until I get to the 5k mark, and if I can sustain this to the 5k mark, then we're in a good stead for today. I have to give this guy a shout. He doesn't even know that I did this. There was a guy yesterday, he must have been about 6'6", and he was really graceful for a big guy. He just ran so consistently, and he was running completely at the pace that I needed him to like stay on his tail up until the 6 to 7k mark, which was when then I could put my foot down a little bit more. And that was my plan. I set off with the intention to be as consistent as I could until 7k, and if there was any juice left in the tank, then I would squeeze it to try and get a good finish. And there was a good finish there. It was really nice. The one I always give a shout out to him. One guy that's been there from the start and gone far afield to support me in races is my dad. I know it may sound really stupid, but just having someone there that can hold stuff for you while you're putting your race number on and while you're out running, somebody can hold your drink and look after your phone. It's just, I cannot express how important and lovely that is. And really wholesome to come back in, like knowing that you're running at like a 8, 9 out of 10 effort, and seeing him, and he was of the impression that I was looking for 52, whereas at that stage of the race I'd squeezed a little bit more, and I knew that if there was a potential sub 50 minute 10k for only the second time ever in my life. And I saw him and he said to me, "You got 45 seconds." I was like, "What for?" He was like, "To get in at 52 minutes." And I was like, "I think I've beaten that already," because obviously my watch had started a little bit earlier on the line, because where you press start and you start a little bit before the chip time, and the chip time obviously monitors you from when you cross the electronic, I don't know, tracker, and then when you come back into it as well. So that's a by the by. But I finished really strongly. It took ages. It was one of the few times ever that there was a bit of a Strava malfunction, and um, at the end of the race, I went to like see my stats and whatever on Strava, and I saw that it wasn't syncing. My Garmin and my Strava weren't syncing, which was like a nightmare, and it took ages. I thought I'd accidentally deleted my run, which would have been gutting, because it was Strava that showed me that I'd ran a sub 50 10k. But I did get onto the Race Nation website, and I did see my result. It was 50 minutes 4 seconds on the chip time, but I thought if the chip time was good, then I knew that there was a chance that it was sub 50 minutes, and my 10k run yesterday on my Strava and on my pacings turned out to be less than 50 minutes. So we're given, I'll happily walk away with a pat on the back here. And it wasn't a PB, but it was a stamp back to where I wanted to be post-injury, post-working really hard from the Oval Half Marathon, and I was absolutely delighted with that. So it just goes to show I knew that I had the knowledge, I knew how to program myself, and I knew that all I needed to do was just up the ante with my training to get back to where I needed to be. No, I didn't know that definitely, because there was always a chance that I could have got injured again. There was always a chance that maybe, just wasn't there. But I gave myself every single chance to get back to where I wanted to be, executed that, and we ended up back where we wanted to be, which is really, really cool. The second thing that we were going to talk about today, just wrapping it up, like, I'm really happy, as you can imagine, because there's nothing. One of the things that I'll always stand by is like integrity with myself, that I followed the process, which gives me more evidence in the box of I can do this, I can do hard things, I can come back from setbacks, because there's no way I would sit here and say that I was happy with the Oval Half Marathon. I got round another half marathon, which is impressive, but was it to the standard that I wanted to without being big-headed? No, it wasn't. And there was work to do, and we did the work, and we got back to the levels we were looking for. So over the last 6 years since I started doing, I haven't done Martock 10k every year, but it's always been the same route. You start at Martock Fire Station, you go out into East Lambrook and all around those country lanes, and you come back into where the fire station is. But this year, the route was changed, and it's very, very local and very niche to say this, but everybody was in anticipation of the new route. But I have to say, Martock 10k and Race Nation, you absolutely nailed it. Like, completely and utterly nailed it. You were organised. The recreation ground was perfect to host the running event. It was a lovely start and a lovely finish. It was safe. The road closure through Martock was really helpful. I guess it was good as well for actual drivers and motorists, that it wouldn't have been shut for too long. Those main bits coming back into the village, and I just have to say that what a brilliant event. How lucky am I to have two really good events on my doorstep, with the half marathon, which I don't know whether I'll do again or not. But I feel like there is some unfinished business there. But I have missed Weymouth half marathon this year, so I'm probably going to do Weymouth next year. But coming back to the point, Martock 10k, the new route, and the event itself was absolutely outstanding. The possibilities of getting a coffee, getting a bacon sandwich, getting an ice cream afterwards was great. The finish line was great. The free drinks, the jelly. One of my favourite things about finishing a Race Nation event is normally they'll have jelly snakes, the sweets, and they're my favourite thing. So that was a touch, and a lovely medal as well, which I wish I should have won for the episode, but I haven't. So that's really, really good. I think the route was just as kind of mediocrely difficult as the original Martock 10k route. From my memory, somebody may put in the comments or tell me I'm wrong here, but from my memory, on the Martock 10k old route, there was one incline. On this one, there was two. So, but there was a bit of a longer drag of downhill at really good time. Well, obviously after going downhill, but they came at really good times, as when you needed them. Allowed you to recover after, obviously when you're running at tempo and you're going uphill, definitely has an effect on the heart. But yesterday, as I said, my heart rate, my breathing was bang on. The other thing I think as well, I don't mind saying this, and it's not from a place of thinking that I'm better than the other person, is that, like, from a runner's perspective, and I'm sure people have had this experience before, I knew in Yeovil Half Marathon that if you were running next to me, you would have known that I was struggling. And the reason for that would have been the lack of control on breathing. Yesterday, I got great confidence from hearing myself breathing well and others not. Because when you're in control of your breathing and you know you're working harder than you normally do on a run, that's just such a great bit of evidence to show that the work that you've put in on your running has paid off. And the cardiovascular payoff of that, of training at harder intensities, training at lower intensities, so just getting distance in and spending time on your feet, but also then having the thing in your plan to be able to accelerate when you need to, was and turned out to be amazing. But that's it. Like, I wanted to just sit here on another little bite-sized episode and talk about Martock 10K, talk about a bit of a bounce back. Like, I like to, the phrase in football is bounce back ability. Do you have the ability to come back from a setback? Even in mindset, even in fitness, even in like injury recovery, gaining weight, whatever it may be that you have done that has set you back in something, it's not a failure. It's just a reminder to show you that you can do better. And that was what Yeovil Half Marathon was to me. Yeovil Half Marathon was a reminder to show me that I could do better, and I've taken that invitation from life and from my own actions, subconscious actions, unfortunate actions with injury, to be like, yep, I'm taking that notice, I'm being aware of where I'm at, and I'm going to do something about it. And I'm going to beat those limiting beliefs or beat those thoughts wrong that maybe I could have let hold me back further. So let this be your call out. If you've had a setback recently, you can bounce back from it no matter how serious it is. Just listen to these episodes with guests in the podcast that have come back from way worse things than not running a good half marathon. And yeah, you can take heed from that. You can take confidence. And one of the things that you may, and I'm going to talk about soon, is it's not a lack of trust that you're missing with yourself. It's a lack of evidence that you're missing with yourself. And when you have a setback, you can give yourself evidence to prove that you can come back. And I'll talk about how you can do that in another bite-sized episode very soon. But that was my Martock 10K review. If you have enjoyed listening to my Martock 10K review, drop a like. And if you're not subscribed to the 100% channel, make sure you're subscribed to it. Or if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you drop a follow as well. I will more than likely be here with a new episode every Friday. I'll see you really soon. Take care.